The Prince is back, and winning the 2026 World Cup could turn him into king. Now, for the first time in his career, Neymar heads into a World Cup with Brazil without being the main player. Now, sure, he is the main celebrity of this team, the main star, but we don't even know yet if he's a starter. I mean, we know one thing for sure, Ancelotti probably doesn't consider him a starter, or does he? Now, with Neymar's legacy on the line, because this World Cup will define his legacy. So, how does Ancelotti plan to utilize him to win the World Cup? Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Chapéu Football, where we provide the best coverage of South American football in English on YouTube. And many have requested. We've gotten requests left and right.
You need to do a video doing a tactical breakdown of how Carlo Ancelotti will utilize Neymar in the World Cup because
we've never seen Neymar under Ancelotti. Ancelotti has never called up Neymar up until now. So, based on his comments, the tactics and the system that Brazil currently utilizes, I'm going to go to the tactical board and go through how I think Ancelotti will utilize Neymar in this World Cup. Is he going to be a starter, a super sub? Is he going to play at all? We're going to dive into all of that. Now, if Carlo Ancelotti thought the campaign to bring Neymar to the World Cup was annoying, wait until he sees the campaign to start Neymar in the World Cup. It's going to be bad. But hey, maybe he'll do it. The same way you are going to smash the like button right now. Just do it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Help us hit 20,000 subscribers as soon as possible. And let me know in the comment section down below. With Brazil's current roster, the squad that Ancelotti is bringing to the World Cup, would you start Neymar? All right, let's roll the intro and start the episode. Okay, so before we even reach the tactical board, why don't we go through what Carlo Ancelotti has said himself? Because me just putting my opinion out there for absolutely no reason, just what I think he will do, it's honestly kind of stupid, right? Let's go through what Carlo Ancelotti has said about Neymar, because he gave us a lot of hints and a lot of clues on how he plans to utilize him. And then we'll hit the tactics board about Brazil's system and where Neymar would fit in. So first and foremost, this article came out at globalesporte.com in Brazil, which is a very, it's probably the biggest sports media in Brazil. I would say, I might be wrong. If you're from Brazil, correct me. I haven't lived in Brazil in forever. So again, essentially it's in Portuguese, but what it's saying is that there was a video call between Neymar and Ancelotti on Thursday, the Thursday before the call-up that was on Monday. So like 4 to 5 days prior. And that video call was crucial to bring up Neymar, or to bring Neymar to the World Cup. And why am I showing you this? Because now I'm going to show you a tweet on X, or just an X post, that translated it for us. Because, I mean, I can translate as well, but it's just easier to read this, and you can read it yourself on screen. Let me put it here. So this is what they said about that call. On last Thursday, Carlo Ancelotti and Rodrigo Caetano, that is the football director, I believe, from the Federation, held a video call with Neymar to discuss the scenario that the star will face upon returning to wear the Brazilian national team jersey after 3 years. Yes, Neymar hasn't played for Brazil in like over 1,000 days. It's freaking insane. Now, clarifying, Neymar's change in status was crucial for evaluating the call-up. Carlo Ancelotti explained to the player that he will not be the national team's captain. He's not going to be the captain, and that he already has a starting lineup in mind, and he does not envision the number 10 as a starter in the initial phase. So right away, what can we get from this? Neymar will obviously have a lot of leadership and influence in the dressing room, but he's no longer the captain, and at the moment, he's not a starter. Now, this doesn't mean Neymar could not become a starter during the World Cup. We'll talk about that in a second. But again, we have to use Ancelotti's words right now. So if the World Cup started today, first game, Neymar will not start. Okay, so we'll get to that very soon, and let's go on. Blah blah, and additionally, the coach detailed the new behavioral guidelines that has governed the environment since the start of his tenure. Ancelotti and Caetano previewed for Neymar all the restrictions imposed in the national team setting compared to recent years. So essentially what changed in the environment inside rules before Carlo Ancelotti took over, which that was with Dorival Jr., which I don't think, Neymar wasn't there with Dorival Jr. So Fernando Diniz, Ramon Menezes, Chichi, that was there for 2 cycles. The duo also offered some guidance, such as recommending reduced exposure on social media. probably told Neymar to shut up a little bit. Neymar received the unexpected outreach with a smile on his face and promised to spare no effort to be useful to the group in yet another World Cup. The Santos players' willingness to adapt to the new reality further warmed Ancelotti's heart, and since Friday in the CBF hallways, the call up has been viewed as imminent. So ultimately, Neymar obviously did get called up, and he embraced that role. So he's essentially okay being a backup. Now, one thing is for Neymar to say it, and another is for Neymar to actually behave when he's there. We'll see how that goes, but that's it. In terms of what Ancelotti thinks, Neymar right now is a sub, a super sub, an option. And you may be wondering, when he plays, where will Carlo Ancelotti play him? And I'm going to translate this on screen for you. If you're Brazilian, you can read this. It's in Portuguese. So what he said, and I'm going to translate it here. So it's going to be slow because I'm going to be reading it in Portuguese and translating it to English. But he says, and this is exactly what Carlo Ancelotti said. Okay, this was an interview, I believe, with Placar. I'll check there in a second. So he said, I think that Neymar has to play central, not out wide as a winger, because football these days, you need a help defensively when you play out wide as a winger. When you play a little bit more central, there's less defensive requirements, such as a striker, like how Neymar's playing for Santos, right? He plays up top, like almost like a false nine, a center forward for Santos. So you don't need to have the intensity. You don't have to track back as much because Neymar can't really do that these days. So he's saying, I believe a player with that much talent, like Neymar, he needs to be closer to the goal. That way he'll have opportunities to score. And then they asked him, do you think he'll be a false nine? And then Ancelotti replied, yes, I think that can be an ideal position for Neymar. So what are we seeing here? Essentially, Neymar will play a similar role and position to what he's playing with Santos, that I'm about to show you in a second what that looks like. So he'll look like a false nine or a second striker. Okay, so let's just bring up Brazil's setup, and then I can show you where I think Neymar will play. By the way, this website that I'm putting on screen is FootMob. This is an incredible website and app. If you want to download it for free, the app, the link will be in the description. And in the process, you're helping the channel for free. Okay, you can just download the FootMob app. It's incredible. I love it. I use it a lot on live streams for both channels, Tactile Manager and Chappelle. The link will be in the description. And if you download it for free, you will be helping the channel a lot. So if you want to, just do that right now. But anyhow, Brazil's setup. It looks very often like a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-3-1, whatever you want to call it. Very likely, this is the starting 11. If the World Cup started today, this is what I would expect for Carlo Ancelotti to do. People are going to say, but Endrick has to start. He's not going to start. He's probably a sub with Ancelotti. Luis Henrique has been one of the top performers with the national team. I think he'll start since Estevão's not available. Also, Rodrigo's not available. So Rafinha might play a little bit more central. And obviously, in the defensive shape, we've seen this very often where Cunha comes left, and then Brazil would look like this when they're defending. Vinicius and Rafinha are up top, so Brazil can counterattack. I talked about this on the channel many times. Brazil will very likely be a more reactive team where they counterattack. Besides in the group stage, when we get to the knockout rounds against some very good teams, Brazil will be much more reactive. And then you're going to see Vinicius and Rafinha up top. Cunha does a better job in tracking back defending, so Cunha will drop to the left when defending. And then when Brazil is in possession, usually Vinicius goes out wide. Cunha comes here. Bruno Guimarães goes there. Rafinha will float around here. Casemiro stays here. The fullbacks go up, okay? This is what Brazil looks like when they build out of the back and have possession. It looks something like this. Now, obviously, when they're defending, it's what I told you. Casemiro's here. Bruno Guimarães is here. Cunha and Rafinha. Actually, Cunha goes wide and Vinicius stays up top to counterattack. So it looks like Carlo Ancelotti really wants to build around Vinicius Jr. and probably Rafinha. These two guys on the counterattack can be lethal. So when we're defending, we're looking like this. So you may be wondering, where the heck will Neymar play? Where will Neymar be? So what I think will happen with Neymar is the following. Like, Rafinha is not going to get benched. If Neymar plays, he will take the spot of Luis Henrique, and he will play central. Now, what will happen is this. When Brazil is defending, it's going to look something like this. Ancelotti will have to sacrifice Matheus Cunha and Rafinha, and Brazil will defend with these two guys up top, Neymar and Vinicius. It's going to look like a 4-4-2 defending, and Neymar will be very high up the field. just like he plays for Santos, high up the field. And this might even sacrifice Vinicius a bit more. Vinicius might have to defend a bit more. And then when we take the ball, you find Neymar. Neymar has to find Vinicius and Rafinha in transition on the counterattack. Now, you may be wondering, what about when Brazil has the ball? When Brazil has the ball, I think Vinicius will drift wide. Cunha will go up top. Neymar will float around here. Bruno Guimarães will come here. Casemiro will be here. The fullbacks push up, and Rafinha will be out wide. What happens here is quite interesting because if you have Neymar and Cunha, what happens here is you have a lot of fluidity where Cunha can drop and play as a 10. Neymar can play up top. They can alternate these two because Cunha is essentially playing as a false nine. So Cunha and Neymar will probably alternate between false nine and central attacking midfielder or 10, right? The playmaker. Both of these guys can play make. Both of these guys can alternate. That's where Neymar will come in if that's the case, right? In terms of like Brazil trying to play with Cunha. Now, the other option too is if Brazil's looking for goals and they need a goal scorer or something, I think maybe they will have Igor Thiago. That's a more he's more of a pure center forward, and then Neymar will be the 10 playmaking, and Igor Thiago will be right here playing as a big guy up top, the center forward. But anyhow, when this happens, Bruno Guimarães also will probably stay a bit deeper than when you have Cunha and Rafinha there central. And it'll look something like this when you go Thiago and Neymar there. So, to the point that I'm making, when Neymar plays, his position is as a second striker or a false nine. Okay. He'll be playing as a second striker or a false nine. And there's not much question of what will happen. You may be wondering, is Neymar going to be a starter or a sub throughout the World Cup? What do I think will happen? So, I think that Neymar will come off the bench on both friendlies, right? Brazil plays. Who does Brazil play before the World Cup? They play Panama and Rio de Janeiro at the Maracanã. I think we play Egypt, if I'm not mistaken. That's the other friendly. And then Brazil goes to the World Cup. They will be playing Morocco in the first game. I don't think Neymar will start any of the friendlies, and I don't think Neymar will start against Morocco. The second game is against Haiti. I think that game Neymar will start. That is a game that Brazil will not be reactive. They're going to be very proactive and try to score a lot of goals. I think that's where Carlo Ancelotti will start Neymar. And then if Neymar plays very well against Haiti, I think he'll get a second chance starting against Scotland. And if Neymar does well in those two games, he'll start for the rest of the World Cup. That doesn't mean Neymar will 100% start the whole World Cup or he will be benched the whole World Cup if he doesn't do well. But that's what I'm projecting to happen. The two friendlies, I don't think he'll start. The game against Morocco, the first game of the World Cup, I doubt he starts. Haiti, he'll start. If he does well, he'll start again against Scotland. If he does well against Scotland, that's a very tough opponent. I think we're going to see Neymar starting throughout the World Cup. But as of now, the starting 11 is more or less what I showed you once again without Neymar, right? Luis Enrique would be there out wide. Rafinha would be more central, and this will be the starting 11. Obviously, Cunha being the one that tracks back and defends with Vinicius and Rafinha defending. But the actual formation will look something like this. That'll be the starting 11 for Brazil to start the World Cup. And then if Neymar does well, gets his opportunities and performs, he'll replace probably Luis Enrique. Rafinha will go out wide. And that's how Neymar will be utilized in the World Cup. And before we close this video, I want to say one thing. I talked about this in the roster breakdown, the last video we made. Brazil does have a legit shot in winning this World Cup. Are they the favorites? No. I think France is a better team, Spain, England, even Argentina, I give a slight edge, even though Argentina is not the same as the previous World Cup. Brazil is somewhere around 5th and 6th with Portugal, in my opinion. But think about one thing. In Brazil, your legacy is defined based on whether or not you won a World Cup. So if Neymar wins this World Cup, he will be among the best Brazilian players of all time. I already think he is one of the best Brazilian players of all time. But in terms of legacy, you need to win a World Cup. That's how it is in Brazil. I'm sorry. It is what it is, right? Like Zico, if he had won a World Cup, he would be like top 2 or 3 best players of all time in Brazil. But he never won a World Cup, so he's probably top 10, right? I think that would be fair. Neymar wins the World Cup, probably becomes a top 3 Brazilian player of all time, right? That's probably what happens from the public perspective, right? From general consensus. And think about how crazy this comeback is if he comes back and wins this World Cup. Brazil lost the 2022 World Cup in a heartbreaking moment where Neymar actually did very well against Croatia, scored a beautiful goal, and then things happened and Brazil lost, obviously, on penalty shootouts. After the World Cup, he tore his ACL. He's been battling injuries for 3 years, essentially. And then he's back with the national team in the last call-up that he could, he's back. Imagine if he wins the World Cup. how much this changes his legacy completely. Because if Brazil's going to win the World Cup, well, I talked about this. They need the fullbacks to not, shit the bed. That's one thing for sure. We need everyone to perform well. But Neymar's going to be important. Brazil probably doesn't win this World Cup unless Neymar is very sharp, even if he's coming off the bench. They're going to need Neymar throughout the World Cup. So it is a defining moment for his legacy. And that's why I said I think Ancelotti's plan was always to bring Neymar as long as he's healthy and fit. And he is fit right now. And I think that was part of his plan. His plan was to make this team feel like they were playing for something more than just Brazil. They were playing also for Neymar's legacy. And all these Brazilian players, they idolize Neymar. They've talked about it. They all love Neymar. And ultimately, now they're playing for Brazil. That's the biggest thing. No one's bigger than the country. Neymar's not bigger than Brazil, but they're also playing for Neymar's legacy. The same way Argentina was playing for Messi's legacy in 2022. Okay. So that's all for today. Hopefully this helped you envision what to expect from Neymar in the World Cup. And if you want my prediction, I think when the knockout rounds come, I think Neymar is going to be starting. I know he's not the same as he was. I agree with that. I've been watching him a lot for Santos. He doesn't have the same explosiveness, the first 2-3 steps that he was very quick. And even from a technical standpoint, he's obviously Neymar and he can win you games, but he's not at the same match sharpness. But I think when push comes to shove and you hit the knockout rounds, if Neymar is healthy, if he's not injured, I think he'll start. Don't forget to drop a like in this video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you made it this far, and download FootMob. The link will be in the description. It'll help us quite a bit. All right. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.